One of Germany's most gruesome and bizarre unsolved cases begins in 1922 on a small Bavarian farmstead located 43 miles north of Munich. Around March 24th, 1922, farmer Andreas Gruber noticed something peculiar on his farm, which was known locally as Hinterkaifeck. He found footprints outside his home, which led from the woods nearby to his house, but no footprints returning to the woods. Seeing as the small farm was quiet and relatively safe, Gruber never made a report to the police. Things may have been much different had he actually made the report, seeing as a week later on March 31st, the entire Gruber family would be violently murdered. Andreas, his wife Kazilia, their daughter Victoria, and their granddaughter, also named Kazilia, were lured into the barn and slaughtered without mercy with a pickaxe. The family maid, Maria Baumgartner, and their grandson Joseph were murdered inside the house while they slept. It was Miss Baumgartner's first day on the job. The Gruber family were known to keep to themselves, but neighbors became concerned. Their bodies were discovered on April 4th. Neighbors and locals stopped by to check on the Hinterkaifeck farm, seeing as young Kazilia hadn't been at school for 2 consecutive days, as well as the mailman noticing the mail hadn't been picked up. The police were notified immediately and the investigation began. These murders were never solved, and over 100 people were interviewed over the years, some as recent as 1986. Although to some degree, the examinations showed most of the family died from their wounds instantly. However, young Kazilia seemed to have survived for hours before finally dying of shock. She was found with missing clumps of hair, which investigators believed she had done herself. The eldest Kazilia had strangulation marks and 7 blows to the head, leaving her with a cracked skull. Without further detail, I'll just say the bodies all had massive amounts of wounds and broken bones. Luckily, none of the animals on the farm were harmed, and eerily enough, the animals seemed to have been fed and taken care of even after the family had been murdered. The police had initially suspected vagrants or other types of traveling men, but changed their minds when a large sum of money was found untouched inside the house. Beyond the bed sheets used to cover the bodies, nothing out of the ordinary was disturbed. Although it's clear the killer remained at the farm for days after the murders. He ate the family's food and used their fireplace. Police would turn their suspicion on several men connected to the family, due in part because of some of the domestic tension at the farm. Victoria was a widow whose husband perished in World War I, and the father of Joseph, her son, was unknown. She had a relationship with a man named Lorenz Schlittenbauer and planned to be married until Andreas Gruber interfered, ending that relationship. Police thought Lorenz couldn't pay child support for Joseph and had come to the farm, which was located only a short walk from his own, and murdered the family. They came to this conclusion based on his odd behavior he displayed during his initial interview. Not to mention, he led the search party who found the bodies in the barn, was nonchalant about the whole thing, and didn't seem repulsed at all by the bodies. Police eventually cleared him since they couldn't reliably place him at the farm during the time of the murders. Police became more creative than their suspicions, at one point theorizing that Victoria's husband who supposedly died in the war, had returned to the farm only to discover she had moved on with another man. The only thing that makes much sense to the police was the killer knew their way around the farm. The killer had a personal vendetta against the family. Now, days leading up to the murder, around the time Andreas discovered the footprints, neighbors remember him complaining about hearing footsteps in his attic. He would also go on to state he was missing his keys to the tool shed, which is conveniently where the murder weapon was kept. Not only that, but he mentioned a newspaper he found in his house that he didn't remember purchasing. The investigators had uncovered that the maid who worked for the Groupers before Maria quit 6 months earlier because she claimed to hear voices and believed the house was haunted. All of this evidence led the investigators to believe the murderer had been living inside the house for more than 6 months before committing these heinous killings. Every single person who has been interviewed throughout this case has been cleared of any wrongdoing. The family was eventually buried, and the farm destroyed after all of the evidence could be taken. The case was closed, but has been reopened several times in the past century. But no significant evidence would ever be uncovered. I'll see you on the other side.